If you believe in following your dreams, Island, rather than believing in a lie, then click on the link in the description to vote Yoil Cake over Portal's Black Forest Cake in the 2016 Battle of the Fantasy Foods. Hi guys, can you tell what's new this time? Well, a lot of you have been asking for the new version of the Evolution Simulator to be put online, and I just did it. So you can go and open processing, see this link up here, I'll put it in this description, and it runs completely in browser. I can figure out how to get rid of this. Click start, and it all works. And this is JavaScript. This is the JavaScript mode, which means that, like I've said before, it runs a bit slower. So if you want to get the full experience of Evolution, you should copy the text, which is behind here. You can see it back here, down here, and put that into your version of processing. I think it only works with processing 2.2.1. because processing 3 for some reason couldn't export into like JavaScript, so I couldn't put it online, and processing 1 is outdated. So yeah, you have to use processing 2.2.1, and you can see things are working, and you have the accents. For some reason the mouse wheel doesn't work in this version, but I don't think that's a big problem because I didn't use it very much. So to get this simulation ready for its new public release, I guess, you can see I've added a few new features. The first one being there are more statistics up in the corner. So there's the creature ID like always, the time in seconds, which now shows more sig figs, the playback speed like always. Now the first new line is energy used, and you might wonder, what does that mean? Well, I wanted to add certain constraints on the creature so they couldn't just spaz out like crazy. So by changing some variables, you can make it so that the creatures have a starting level of energy and it goes down, and once it hits 0, the creature dies, and that means they have to be more efficient. So the unit is yums because energy comes from eating food, which is delicious, so you say yum. But I was trying to think about how to calculate energy, and my first approach was to say every time a muscle moves a node by any certain amount, that is considered energy, because that's like it exerting its potential energy stored within its, I don't know, squishiness. But if you think about a rigid triangle where the muscles aren't changing length at all, the node at the top is being held up by the two rigid muscles, and the node will keep being pulled down by gravity and then pushed up by the muscle. So even though the triangle is completely idle, it will be, by my first definition of energy, wasting energy constantly over time. And I didn't think that was very realistic, because if you have a real life triangle that's not alive, it won't be exerting any energy, but it can still stay upright, right? You know, just like anything that has a solid shape. So I decided the new definition of wasting energy is every time a muscle's target length changes, the energy used is the target length change times the rigidity of the muscle. I think that makes the most sense. So when the creature dies, whatever position the muscles were in, it will stay that way for the rest of all time as the corpse just lies there. So I guess you could say these creatures still have rigor mortis, right? Their body kinda well, it doesn't harden, but it stays rigid like you'd expect. So I think energy is pretty cool. The next new feature is AN nausea, which stands for average node nausea. This was another metric I wanted to measure for the creatures so that they can't spaz out like crazy. So all it measures is if a node accelerates in any direction, the stronger the acceleration, the more the nausea. And it's kind of a square function, so that if you experience twice the acceleration, you get 4 times as nauseous. And this was actually even more effective than energy used in preventing twitchy, boring creatures. But it's less realistic because, I mean, body parts don't really get nauseous, right? But yeah, it just gives you more options to play with, and like Blez is the unit because you go blah when you're nauseous, right? It all makes sense. Now the next big feature this new simulation has is you can notice these 3 buttons on the ground. So the first thing is, if you find this creature boring, it's not moving at all, you can click skip, and it'll instantly go to the next creature. By the way, it will finish simulating the old creature, because from the computer's perspective, doing those 900 frames of simulation is almost instantaneous. So I can just keep clicking skip, and the computer is not stressed out whatsoever. It's totally fine. The next thing you can do is speed up the playback speed. I just did powers of 2 to be easy. So now it's at 64 times speed, and it loops over too. So here's 900 speed, and it goes back to 1 if you want to go back to 1. So this is cool because in the old version, there was this arbitrary rate at which the playback speed sped up, and that was just completely meaningless, and some people might not like it. Some people might actually want to see all the creatures at 1 times speed, so why not let them? So yeah, more options here. And then the final thing is finish. In case you're getting bored, and you just want to see the end result, click finish. And what that will do is it'll just finish calculating the whole generation like an ASAP generation. So it does it all in one frame and you don't see any of it. And then you can sort. And this sorting animation, for whatever reason, it seems to be getting slower and slower every time I run it. So you can skip that as well if that's getting too slow for you. And I think that's about it. I mean, for the step-by-step generation, the new features for that. Oh, it's not it, because the little mini simulation windows that you see here, the stats are shown in the same way as they are in the big screen. You can see the creature ID, time, playback speed, energy used, and average node nausea. This was a lot easier to do because if I'm showing the same stats, why don't I use the same function call to display them? So yeah, now everything you'd ever want to know is available everywhere. So yeah, this is the JavaScript mode, and it works in browser and it's very cool, but to demonstrate all the new features I added, I'm going to go back to the Java version, which again is faster, and also if you notice the JavaScript version uses a different font. Not a big deal, but if you like the style of the original Java one, then you gotta go back there. So let's do that now. So here we go, this is the actual file. See, it's JavaScript, let's change that to Java. There it is. And all the text code is the same, and it should work exactly the same way. Let's change the seed number just because. And right now I have it at all the default settings. So the measure for fitness is still just how far you move to the right. And there's nothing special added. I do have a few special options you can add. Oh, in Java, the mouse wheel does work. Also, don't mind all these signs up in the air. I just added them because if some creature goes really high up vertically, I still want to see how far it moves horizontally, and this just helps that. So, all the same features, but with the better font and faster. Oh, okay, yeah. So I can speed stuff up. Pretty cool, pretty cool. I can skip creatures I don't like. Cool, and then I can finish. So I could just do another run through of evolution again, but you've already seen the creatures try to go to the right so many times already that I feel like you're bored of that, aren't you? So I'll go into the code now and show you how you can use other metrics as the fitness measure, which gives you a lot more freedom. So, when you go into this file, the most important function of all time is the one at the very bottom. I don't really know how to order my functions, so it's kind of haphazard, but you got lucky, because set fitness, that's the function that at the very end of the simulation of 900 frames, it's what determines the creature's fitness level. And right now it's set to average x, which means the x coordinate of the whole creature, times 0.2, because for whatever reason I made a meter 5 units. So yeah, you gotta multiply by 0.2 to get into meters. But if, say, you want the creatures to be as high as possible after 15 seconds, then you do average y. It's as easy as that. We'll just realize that when you do this, it's only going to measure the creature at the exact snapshot after 15 seconds. So this isn't a good way to measure jump height, because if you want jump height, you gotta record over all 900 frames and find the highest. But it's just a good explanation of how easy it is to change the fitness. Now, another feature I added, okay, a few new things. So energy direction. If it's 1, then the energy stat will say energy used, and it'll count upwards as the creature uses more energy. But what if you want the creature to have a limited amount of energy it starts with and slowly deplete from that reservoir? Then what you do is you change the direction to -1. It says it in the comment here too, right? And then you change baseline energy, which is the energy level it starts at, to, let's say, 20. Now we can see that the creatures will count down from 20. And you can see, oh, it's at 98. What the... Ooh, oh, really? Oh. Okay, I have to fix something. So what happened was, when a simulation of one creature starts, the function setGlobalVariables is called, and you can see in this function, we set energy to the baseline energy, right? That's what... Okay, forget this right now. That's what sets the energy to the baseline energy at the very beginning. But because of some previous simulations I did, where I wanted bigger creatures to be given more energy, I multiplied by node size. So that means that if the baseline energy was 20, and you had 5 nodes, then you would start out with 100 yums. Now, I forgot to remove that when I moved everything back to the default settings, so now... Is it recording? Oh yeah, it's recording. So now if you go to the open processing... For now, I'll just show you what it looks like without that adjustment. So that means the baseline energy is 20, So all creatures, regardless of size, are getting 20 yums to start out with. So you can see, yeah, energy left 18 because it's used up some. Now it's settled, so it's not using any energy left, which makes sense because it looks pretty stable to me. Those 20 yums. This one didn't use any energy at all, and that makes sense because no accents are changing the muscle length. It's pretty much a dead wireframe. Let's find a creature that actually runs out of energy. Actually, that's probably not going to happen for a while because it needs to keep repeatedly changing its muscle length to get it, and I don't think many creatures are doing that yet. And so that's why they're all ending up with like 18 or 19 yums, because they're only using less than 2 yums. Okay, so after one generation, the best creature is one that actually does continuously use energy. You can see something. Okay, well, it had 6 yums left, but because of the degeneracy thing, it actually died from a different cause before it could run out of energy. So I want to show you what it looks like when a creature runs out of energy. So I'm going to wait for the top one to change, and that likely means that another creature who moves continuously died. So 9 yums left, 3 yums left, then 0 yums left, and the muscles just pass out. They cannot no longer push and pull. Well, they can still push or pull, but they can't change their target length. So that's what it looks like when you run out of energy. So if I keep going, then I'll have very energy efficient creatures because 20 yums is not a lot to work with, especially if you're a bigger creature. But I don't think this results in nice looking creatures either, because triangles will dominate. So yes, I was right. With only 20 yums, triangles clearly have an advantage with a lighter body weight. And here's the winner. Also, an interesting thing is, the more rigid a muscle, the more energy it takes to change length, right? So these creatures have very light colored muscles because they take less energy. This is the minimum rigidity muscles can have to push the creature along, and it's still getting through. Yeah, so this video isn't about this simulation though, it's to show off all the features. So I just want to make it clear that if you want to set the energy baseline to anything you want, you can do it. So if you want it to be relative to the number of nodes, you do that. If you want it to be relative to the number of muscles, you can just do that, and it'll work. Or you can make it inversely proportional if you want by dividing and all that. It's really completely free for whatever you want. And you can also change these, but don't. There's no point. It just measures nausea, which starts at 0, regardless. When you go down to fitness, like I said, you can change this to anything you want with like X or Y. If you don't want nauseous creatures, you can subtract how much nausea they had. So average node nausea times, let's say 0. I have no idea what constant multiplication I should do, so I'll just say 0.5 for now. And I also don't want creatures to have an energy limit anymore, just to show you that the nausea is the only thing changing the simulator based on the default settings. So we're going to set the direction back to 1 so that it only counts up and there's no limit. We'll set the baseline back to 0. So now it should discourage nauseous creatures. Let's do a quick generation, just so I can show you what fitness looks like now. So the unit for fitness is kind of confusing because I have it as meters, and it will stay as meters until you change it. But in this case, that's not really what it means. So you can see it says the fitness was 0.10, but the distance it traveled was... But do I not have that? Do I seriously not? Okay, so the edit I made was now you can see the X and Y coordinates in the stats list as well, because those are really important. And the thing I was going to point out is that even though the best creature moved, you can see the X coordinate 0.23 meters to the right, its fitness is only 0.18 because it subtracted half of its nausea, which is 0.09. Makes sense, right? And you can also see that a lot of creatures are negative because the nausea only subtracts. This is our worst creature because not only did it move to the left, kind of, it's being very nauseous. See, all the acceleration those nodes are going through are subtracting heavily from its fitness, so it gets a minus 12. So the rule of thumb of this simulation is you gotta move to the right, but be very careful not to make your nodes nauseous. And you can see a lot of creatures went negative. The median's actually negative as well. So I'll just show you where this simulation goes, but again, it's not very interesting. There's a few other things I want to show you, but this is just one of them. So it's very difficult to get forward. I might have made the nausea constant a bit too high. Remember, I set it to 0.5, and maybe that's too steep. Maybe we should try like 0.1. But the end result of this is nodes have to be gradually dragged along to have very low acceleration. And because it's quadratic, like nausea is the square of the acceleration, I did that so that if you gradually speed up to a certain speed versus accelerating really fast to a certain speed, the gradual thing is actually more beneficial even though you end up with the same speed at the end, if that makes sense. Oh, I stopped A-lapping. Oops. Oh, all that time wasted. Okay, triangles are in the lead, but S45 is taking over. After 21 generations, the fitness is rising. Those nodes look like they're enduring some nausea, but I guess it's not that much because it's only 0.55 blez. And again, that's probably because they didn't accelerate that much, but it's spread out over a long period of time, so yeah, you get it. So this is what intense nausea does to creatures. So at the very beginning, you just want to be very, very gentle. Like, don't upset any nodes, and don't really, you shouldn't care if you're not getting very far because, okay, well that was weird. But you want to be very gentle, right? So for a long time here, this creature was the best because it had a pretty constant way of moving, but it's very slow and none of the nodes are feeling that sick, right? They're pretty healthy, just, you know, slowly inching its way along. No nausea, very good. And then something happened here with triangles, and I guess this is slightly more nauseous. You can see the nausea levels going up, but its speed is clearly a bigger upside than the higher nausea is a downside, so this one is winning now. So here's one creature that resulted from discouraging nausea, and it's pretty cool. It's got 2 legs, though it doesn't look as fluid as I thought it would, but oh well. Another interesting thing about this simulation is that for a time, S44 had the lead, which is interesting because squares never take the lead. So you can see this is what squares look like. This is their strategy. And then it only takes 1 extra muscle to turn S44 into S45. So yes, this is the simulation with an even higher deterrence of nausea. So let's see what happens if I push it even further. So this is where I set the nausea deterrent to -1.1, which means that for every unit of nausea you go up 1, your fitness goes down 1.1 meters, right? So for a long time we had triangles, but I think the coolest thing is that they were so eager not to upset their precious little nodes that the best they could do is just rotate a bit like this giant wheel. Do you see this? Do you see this rotation? Very slow movement. This is really the best they could do. And only 0.02 blez. That is ridiculously low nausea. And it's what you'd expect anyway. So you can see, like... Oh, and another thing to notice is that this graph is super zoomed out because you can see -50 meters, -60 meters. How is this even possible? Well, that's because, you know, accumulating nausea means your fitness goes down really fast. So this must be a really twitchy creature. Yeah, look at that. See how much nausea it's racking up? See, like, that division white node is, like, just throwing up inside, and it's accumulating so much vomit. It's just despicable. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so this just demonstrates how you can change the result to, like, what you want to see based on what you measure as fitness. And then one last thing I want to show you before I call it quits for this video is this new feature called Hazel stairs, and they're recommended by Hazel Cricket. So what it is a bunch of cloud platforms, so let's take a look. By default, Hazel stairs, the variable, is set to -1, which means they don't exist. But if you set them to, say, 1.0, that means there will be a Hazel stair every 1 unit, which is 1/5 of a meter because of the dumb conversion thing. So, let's take a look. What does that mean, a Hazel stair? It's just a cloud platform that exists indefinitely left and right. But when nodes are above the cloud platform, it's like the ground. They cannot go below that cloud platform, but they can easily pass above it. So it's a one-way platform kind of thing. And that's pretty cool. But Hazel Cricket recommended also changing the fitness variable to not just be your x distance, but your x times y, so that creatures are forced to go up diagonally. And also another thing to mention, even though the the posts and the Hazel stairs only get drawn out to these edges. They actually go out indefinitely. It's just that when I drew them, I didn't really know where to like draw the line, so you don't see the whole thing. But they do go off indefinitely in all directions. So if we want to measure fitness as x times y, we'll just do that right here. Like that. It's as easy as that. But since y is negative, the higher you go, the more negative you go. We need to make this negative so that as you go to the upper right, it'll be positive. Make sense? Okay, so let's get started. Oh, and I also wanted to make it so that the more nodes you have, the more energy you start out with. So let's do that also. So we need to go to set global variables right here and change it so that the energy you start out with is baseline energy times n.size. And then we also need to make it so that we have a baseline energy level. Let's say you get 8 yums per node and the energy direction is negative. So I think that should be enough. So let's do a step-by-step generation. You can see the PX node and this node are resting on this platform. It's pretty clear how they work, right? Yeah. Okay, let's skip this guy. It's pretty interesting because now there can be cases where a node is resting on a platform and the nodes below are dangling from it. That's something that never existed before. Let's skip that one. Actually, let's just finish. I want to see what the best one looks like. So remember, the more to the upper right you can go, the higher your fitness. So this is the best creature with a fitness of 0.50. You can see it ran out of energy. Do you see that? It's got to be more energy efficient. And because it only got 3 nodes, it only started out with 30 yums. Or no, how many? Oh no, 24 yums. You start out with 8 yums per node. And then the worst creature, yeah, going to the right. Going to the left is negative still. So these are the best creatures with dealing with Hazel stairs, and I'm not very impressed, because even though they are saving on energy, kind of, they're very twitchy, so maybe instead of limiting the amount of energy they get, node nausea seems to be the way to go. So I'm going to combine Hazel stairs and node nausea, so let's do that now. So again, energy direction back to normal. Like that. And then fitness is now this stuff plus minus node nausea. Oh, it's right there. I already commented out. I think 1.1 might be a bit too steep now because it's hard to move. So I'll keep it at 1.1 for now. And then, now we'll see how the creatures move. Oh no, but I need to change it so that... This isn't that big of a deal, but I'm gonna change it so that energy is no longer relative to node count. Okay, let's do 1 generation, see what it looks like, and then do 100 more. Pretty good, right? Pretty good. It's already positive, and the median's negative again, just like it always is when you have nausea deterrence. So after pushing these creatures through 500 generations of Hazel stairs, this is what we get. And I removed the energy limit, but I kept the nausea penalty so that they don't twitch like always, like I've said before. So, because we're using x times y, as in distance traveled plus distance risen, as fitness, the measure is going to be meters squared. So you can see that because doubling your x distance and doubling your y distance quadruples your fitness, the graph up until here, you can kind of imagine it's like quadratic. Well, actually not really. One thing I think is really interesting about this time is that like squares, they took the lead again at one point. I'm not sure if I can find it. Here's a square. Look at that, it's slowly moving. That's pretty cool. Actually, that's not cool at all. You can see how little progress was made up until the big triangle takeover of Generation 100. So, for the most part of the first century, S45 was the way to go, and this is how it moved. Okay, here's another S45. Yeah, same idea. The S45 creatures cannot move constantly over and over again. They can only move once. But then even this early in the stage, S33 was already taking the lead with this creature, which is using pressure as its main piston to move forward. And you can see in the graph that that trait couldn't spread through the population until much later, and then S33 took over. And now we have this. So you can think of the fitness, which is the median right now is 1.097 meters squared, as the area of the rectangle that has one corner on the origin and one corner on the average location of the creature. So it's pretty reliable, this triangle, right? But you can see that it only went 18.14 meters squared for x times y minus nausea. So that's pretty good, but it could clearly improve all the way up to, what is this? 55. Here's a 55 meters squared performance. Look at that, it's pretty cool. Hazel stairs are definitely conquerable, and because of the nausea penalty, it's very fluid, right? There's no weird spasms, so everything's good. Oh, I guess, oh, look at that, the pressure node right there is dangling, so it says zero pressure, and because of zero pressure, there's nothing to move the creature forward. And then, what I think is really interesting is that I was waiting for the median to hit 40, and then I would stop recording, but stop simulating, but I wanted it to hit 40 reliably, so I kept going. And then, like, just suddenly here, it went way up from 40 to 50, so now the median's at 53, which is pretty darn good. Yeah, so I think the only thing that really matters here is the pressure node in the back. Oh, I never mentioned that I have a new pressure node. It just says how much pressure is being exerted on that node, which works both horizontally and vertically. Oh, that's interesting. That creature just died the instant the timer ended at 15. Yeah, but the pressure node registers pressure both horizontally against a wall or vertically against the ground or ceiling, like here. And that reminds me, the one last thing I want to exhibit in this video is how to put rectangles of ground in the field. It's very easy, and that's how I put the hurdles in the hurdles video like a year ago. I'll just show you how to do that after I show this performance, which I think is the same as the other guys. Yeah, it's weird how they die. So they die right when the camera shut off. They no longer feel any motivation to move forward. So yeah, this was pretty cool. So yeah, Hazel stairs. I hope you like what happened, Hazel Cricket. It's pretty cool, don't you think? Okay, let's move on to the last thing I want to show you. So if you want to okay, let's turn off Hazel's stairs. And what else? Let's make the fitness back to normal. Like that. And I think that's it. So now all you have to do to add a rectangle is go to the... Oh, I typed a lot of weird stuff there. It's void setup. This Rex array list is just an array list of all the rectangles that are going to show up. So if I just put in one rectangle here, so this is the only rectangle that counts. The coordinates of two corners of this rectangle are 3, -0.5, and 7, 10. Now these again are the units such that 5 of them make a meter. So you have to remember that. See that rectangle there? That's what it produced. It's pretty easy to figure out. Let's say we do... Oh, negative numbers are higher in the air, just remember that. 4, -7. I think the first two numbers have to be bigger than a little smaller than the next two numbers. I'm not sure if that's enforced, if it'll cause errors or not, but I'm just going to do it to be safe. So now that puts a big block in the air. Now I don't like how the posts are showing up in front of the ground, so I'm actually going to flip that around to draw ground. So post should come before drawing the ground. I have it twice because I also need to do it when I'm doing the mini simulation window that shows up there. Okay, so now you can see there's a big block in the air and it's covering up the posts like you expect. So you can pretty much create any environment you want with these rectangles, and the creatures will collide with them as you'd expect them to. So it's pretty easy to use, and yeah, go ahead and play with it. It's real fun. And that's it for this video. Goodbye! By the way guys, the next Evolution Simulator video is going to absolutely blow your minds! It's going to make all my EvoSim videos so far seem like baby toys. It's gonna give you a third eye, but in all honesty, it will be pretty cool. So subscribe if you want to see that magic.